Can you believe this? Tabs finally got its full release, with 2 all-new playable factions, 2 new campaigns, 2 new secret units, a multiplayer mode, and a whole bunch of other stuff I've probably forgotten already. The only problem is, it happened on the 1st of April, which means some people probably didn't believe the actual announcement until they checked their Steam, or Xbox Live, or Epic Store, and saw that the update was in fact live and ready for downloading. After an undisclosed amount of years in development, hopefully it was worth the wait. Hello everyone and welcome back to this humble abode of gameplay and memes. In this video, I will show you every single secret unit in the release version of Totally Accurate Battle Simulator. I will demonstrate both how to find them as well as what exactly they do. We will start, of course, with the cradle of civilization, both that of humans and adorable ragdoll people. The primordial landscapes of Tribal 1. From the default camera view, go straight towards the opposite edge of the map. Once there, turn left and you'll see a weird hairy object lying on top of a tree stump. Approach it and stare at it until it lights up and disappears. At this point, you will unlock the Cheerleader. The Cheerleader isn't a combat unit, but rather a support one. By performing its ancient ritual dance, the Cheerleader can boost the attack speed of a nearby ally. Attack speed boosts from multiple Cheerleaders on the same unit stack with each other. In this demonstration, you can clearly see that the red brawler attacks faster than the blue brawler. However, your success still depends on the performance of the boosted unit. For example, in this demonstration, the red brawler attacking more often leaves more opportunities for counterattack by the blue brawler, who manages to utilize it well, come out on top, and then effortlessly slaughter the Cheerleader who can no longer defend itself. Serves him right, right? Our next destination is just as primal, if a little bit more complex. This is Tribal Sandbox, and this is where you find the next unit. From the default map view, press F and go to the right side of the map. Around this campfire, you will find a bunch of signs of other wobbler activity, such as this stone structure resembling a table. On this table, there is a dinosaur skull right in the middle. Get your camera as close to the skull as you can, then stare at it until it lights up and bursts into a bunch of pretty red sparkles. At this point, you will unlock the Raptor. As a unit, the Raptor is pretty self-explanatory. It's very cheap, it runs fast, and it attacks its enemies with both its jaws and its legs, killing multiple cheaper, weaker units, such as clubbers, quickly and efficiently. Moving on, without leaving the comfort of the primal sandbox, our next target is located on the opposite side of the map. After pressing F, find a small rock formation with a bunch of fallen and crooked birch trees scattered all over it. This formation actually has a cave inside it, with the entrance located on the opposite side of the default camera view. Our object of interest is a human skull situated on top of a dinosaur skull lying right next to the campfire. Stare at it long enough and you shall unlock the Raptor Rider, the next step of Raptor and Wobbler evolution. The Raptor Rider combines the relative strengths of the Raptor and the Clubber, with this rider also being protected by a small shield. This unit can bite, claw, and joust its enemies, even though at this point it's going to take a few thousand more years before the term jousting is actually invented. As we leave our ancestral home behind, our next destination is the peaceful rural scenery of Farmer 1. As you take control of the free camera, go to the right side and find a small cluster of trees near the road. Underneath those trees, you'll find a very cute and friendly looking fish, lizard, salamander thingy. Wait, what? Are you telling me it's a dragon? What? It's a dragon! Oh no, we're all gonna die! The Wheelbarrow Dragon combines the majesty of Bob Ross and the maneuverability of the wheelbarrow with the destructive power of Dragon's Breath. Be warned, however, that the dragon itself is extremely fragile. A single careless maneuver will result in the wheelbarrow falling over and the untimely demise of this toothy tadpole. Don't worry though, you can always rely on Bob Ross himself to finish the job. Our next destination doesn't merely contain secret units. It is a secret destination all of its own. On the very same map, if you check the houses underneath the default camera position, you will see that one of them has a small balcony with a snow globe on it. What could that possibly mean, I wonder? Oh, I know. It means Merry Christmas! Farmer Snow, not actually related to Jon Snow, is a special Christmas-themed map with the same general layout, except covered in snow and season-appropriate decorations. Underneath the default camera position and slightly to the right, your eyes may fall upon this weird ice sculpture. If you stare at it long enough, you'll realize it is no mere sculpture. It is a key, and it unlocks an absolutely fantastic specimen, both in terms of its looks and utility. The Ice Mage has a powerful ranged attack. The projectiles it throws at enemies transform them into those very same ice sculptures, trapping them in place and allowing your other units to score extremely easy hits on them. Notice how I said other units? Yeah, these guys don't perform too well alone. But wait, there is more! Yes, you heard it right, there are more presents to be claimed. And when I say presents, I mean literally, there is one right there, on the balcony of the leftmost house on the far edge of the map. Inside this present, you'll find a cute little elf, and inside that elf are yet more presents! The present elf has probably been created by J.J. Abrams himself. It throws mystery boxes at enemies. Just like it usually goes, it's very hard to say whether this box will deliver or disappoint. This box seems like it can spawn pretty much any kind of unit. From a ranged unit who will immediately die because it's out of position, to the likes of the Viking Longboat Rider or Bob Ross, who you can't even normally deploy as separate units, to the likes of the Pirate Captain or even the Pirate Queen, who can slaughter the entire enemy army all on their own. Thus, the value of the present varies wildly, adding excitement and diversity to pretty much any battle. All good things come to an end, however, and eventually we have to move on from gift opening back to treasure hunting. Our next destination is Medieval 1, a spectacular land bridge between two beautiful cliffs. In between all of this spectacular scenery, on the right side of the map, there are three highly suspicious looking barrels. Take a closer look, and inside one of them, you'll find a ridiculous looking piece of headgear. See? It's so ridiculous, it allows you to perform impossible backflips by just equipping it. The Jester is extremely proficient at hand-to-hand fighting. In addition to its deadly knives, it can also dodge incoming melee attacks, as well as perform devastating kicks that completely flatten lesser enemies, or just send them flying to the moon. That is also an option. Not every murder is joyous, however. Some of it is grim, methodical, devoid of any kinds of emotions. If you take a walk through the woods on the left side of the map, you will eventually stumble upon a tree stump with a really serious looking axe embedded in it. Stare at it long enough and it will stare right back at you, along with its soulless wielder. The Executioner is extremely straightforward, always keeping up that professional attitude. One by one, it chops down its foes with mighty swings of its massive axe, with total disregard for its own safety, or for whatever else is going on around it, really. It knows it has a job to do, and it does that job well. Except when its enemies decide to hug it. It really doesn't deal well with hugs. If the Executioner shocked you, be warned, we aren't out of the woods yet. Quite literally in this case, there is more stuff to find there. Look at this small lonely tree on the bottom left edge of the cliff. At first, it doesn't look suspicious at all, but upon closer inspection, it turns out there was this massive dude sleeping right underneath it. Just like its smaller axe-wielding cousin, the Tree Giant is also extremely straightforward. Unlike the Executioner, the Tree Giant is a lot more fun to use, knocking entire platoons of enemies aside with every swing and leaving nothing but devastation in its wake. It also takes a lot more kindly to hugs, except then it still destroys all of its enemies all the same. Apparently, it's also a big fan of long, philosophical stares into the distance. I'm pretty sure those are just trees. I guess this guy really loves trees after all. Moving on from perilous natural bridges to breathtaking castles, Medieval 2 holds plenty of its own secrets. For example, this small lonely tower on the right side contains weapons with mind-blowing destructive potential. Stare at it long enough and it will reveal the legendary warrior, one of the first known masters of spin jitsu. The Mace Spinner attacks by constantly spinning around, knocking both its enemies' weapons and faces aside. While not invincible, it usually provides great value for its cost, especially when paired up with a certain other secret unit. When boosted by a Cheerleader, or 2, or 10, the Mace Spinner starts spinning so fast, it has a potential to create a tornado! The tornado will suck both enemies and allies into it, ensuring they will be too preoccupied to fight anything else. The victims are also liable to take fall damage, as well as take a while to get up, even if they survive the ordeal. And overall, this is one of the most spectacular unit combinations in the entire game. With that being said, be mindful that enemies are still conscious while inside the tornado, so they can still hurt and kill the Mace Spinner. In the latter case, the tornado will stop immediately, so it's a very good idea to have a backup plan in case the first plan doesn't spin hard enough to win. Is it just me, or is it oddly satisfying to watch helpless cheerleaders get wiped out by squires like that? Not all towers are created equal. Some of them have tree trunks growing around them. In particular, the tallest tower in Medieval 2 holds one of our next targets. You can find a fancy looking spear sticking right out of the top of this particular tree trunk, and if you stare long enough at that, it will reveal another, incredibly destructive medieval weapon. A horse! The Cavalier, or Cavalry, as it is called in this game, combines the raw power of the knight with incredible mobility to provide a solution to most problems you will face. The horse will trample anything in its way, while the rider will provide serious damage of its own by skewering the opponents with its spear, or smacking them on the head with the shield or the spear again. When positioned and utilized correctly, the cavalry can defeat massive hordes of enemies with a much higher cost than its own. It's almost like a mammoth, except cheaper, faster, and much harder to hit. Also, it's much more entertaining to watch, as it plows into its enemies from every angle imaginable, not only overpowering them, but also outmaneuvering them. Seriously, I'd have no problem whatsoever watching this stuff for hours. It's like a medieval or a fantasy movie, except you can do a much better job moving the camera around than those movies usually manage. Our next target lies to the left side of the default camera position. In the middle of the bottom left tree cluster, you will stumble upon a gruesome sight. A wobbler impaled on a stake sticking out of the ground. Who could have possibly done this, you ponder? Well, I think the answer is pretty obvious here. It was the one and only Vlad the Impaler. Just like the Cavalier, Vlad can easily hold its own against hordes of lesser enemies. Not only can he easily hold them at bay with that massive log of his special ability, Vlad Impale, skewers everyone around him, ensuring that no squire or peasant could ever threaten his rule. Our next destination moves us back in time, as we go and visit ancient Greece, also known as Ancient 1. There is a majestic-looking lighthouse on the far left side of the map, and upon closer inspection, you can reveal a bow belonging to one of the most powerful units in the game. The goddess Artemis is apparently the ancient Greeks' equivalent of a heavy machine gun, able to fire an absurd amount of arrows at a rapid pace. Unlike most other ranged units in the game, however, Artemis is just as deadly in close combat. She is capable of knocking enemies away with a massive gust of wind, ensuring she can keep spraying them with arrows with no consequences whatsoever. Even shields won't save you from the wrath of the goddess, as the amount of arrows is so overwhelming, one or two of them are bound to eventually get through. What could possibly be worse than Artemis? Simple. 2 Artemises taking turns firing on you. Changing our entourage from a cute town to a giant peace sign, Ancient 2 holds a secret of its own. As you approach the cluster of buildings on the opposite side of the map, look for an open-topped one near the bottom. Inside, you will find a statue of the Thinker with a sword lying at its feet. Staring at the sword reveals one of the most confusing units in the game. The teacher can block and parry incoming melee attacks, creating easy opportunities for a counter. This unit is truly at its best when controlled by the player, because the AI can't handle the parrying too well, resulting in the teacher being easily killed in a duel with much cheaper units like squires. Leaving Ancient 2 behind, we move on to the love child of the previous 2 maps. This one is absolutely massive and holds multiple secret units on it. The first one is located at the bottom left, leaning on a small stone structure next to some flower pots. This one is very cheap and very unique. The fan bearer's attack involves swinging its massive fan at the enemy, not to hit them with it, but instead to create a blast of wind that will knock the enemy away. Surprisingly, this wind also does damage, which allows the fan bearers, unlike most other support units, to kill enemies all on their own. Our next target is located in the walled-off section of the map on the right side. Search closely, and then, trapped between a wall and one of the buildings within, you will find a crossbow. This is the Chu Ko Nu, or rapid-fire crossbow. There isn't much to say about this unit, except that it can kill some things that will survive one crossbow bolt. Apart from that, most bolts from a single barrage will always hit the same target, potentially wasting a lot of damage that could have been used to kill multiple enemies instead. Remember how I said this map was a love child of the previous two? Well, our next unit is all about love. Located on top of the largest building in the walled-off area, you will find another bow, this time with heart particles coming out of it. This is the Cupid, a flying, ranged combatant whose main ability is to destroy its enemies with the power of love. Upon getting hit with one of Cupid's arrows, the enemy will be compelled to hug and kiss another nearby enemy. Those hugs and kisses aren't just for show though, as the hugger is actually capable of smothering its target to death. The Cupid itself is extremely fragile, however, so you should probably be careful where you place it, as well as protect it with appropriate escort. No, not that kind of escort. From the warm embrace of the Mediterranean Sea, we now move on to the harsh wastelands of the far north. This is the land of strong, gruff, unflinching people known as Vikings, namely Viking 1. If you go straight to its far edge and then turn left, you'll find out that the thing these guys enjoy, as much as fighting, is shouting! The shouter is very similar to the fan bearer, except instead of attacking constantly, it has a relatively long cooldown. However, the blast is also much more powerful, capable of knocking enemies clean off the map into other environmental hazards, or just breaking their limbs, preventing them from using their weapons properly. However, the shouter keeps attempting to walk into melee with enemies, where its fists are no match for most other kinds of weaponry. This means the shouter can be easily dealt with and killed using a constant stream of units, rather than a small tight group. You know how they say the smallest things can hide greatest treasures? Well, that might not be the exact quote, but it definitely applies to this game. If you search the trees on the bottom right side of the map, you may find a massive spiky hammer sticking out of the ground. Situated next to this hammer is the severed head of the most expensive secret unit of all. Similar to its southern cousin, the tree giant, the ice giant is also capable of destroying entire platoons with a single swing. However, the ice giant has much more health, swings its arms separately, and possesses another devastating ability known as Ice Breath. It freezes affected enemies, slowing them down dramatically, allowing both the giant and its allies to finish them off easily. The only downside to this unit, besides its cost, is the fact that it clearly skipped all of its leg days. Yeah, that's okay. I'm sure it will come around eventually. Moving on from regular Viking to Viking Sandbox, or as I like to call it, Giant Ice Bowl. Among all of the marvelous snowy scenery, on the bottom left side of the map you will find a strange hexagonal cage. Inside it is a warm and cozy looking fur hat. Do not be fooled by its cute exterior, however, for its owner is the god of pain itself, as evident from the fact that his name literally sounds like a grunt of pain. Ullr uses his infinite supply of throwing axes that explode on impact to gruesomely freeze and dismember his opponents. However, as you can see from our demonstration, you cannot rely on his power alone. Throughout the game's beta phase, Ullr has suffered quite a substantial nerf to both his damage and attack speed, and once he gets in melee range of the enemy, he can die extremely quickly. Use sparingly and carefully, because for all you know, he might just bring more pain to you than to them. Before we continue onward, allow me a small intermission. If you enjoy this video and or find it useful, don't forget to leave a like, as well as perhaps subscribe and leave a comment down below. It does in fact help me a great deal, as it motivates me to get my lazy rear end off the couch and go record more videos just like this one. As a reminder, I also stream live on Twitch, usually every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, starting at 4:30 AM GMT. If you're interested in more, you can also follow my Instagram or join my Discord server. All of the links will be in the description, as well as the comment section. And now, we shall continue with the actual topic of the video. In the mysterious lands of Dynasty, there is a myriad of environmental hazards, always ready to end your life in a blink of an eye. However, those hazards also hide great mysteries. And the one who can uncover those mysteries shall master all of the martial arts in existence. In particular, the Taekwondo unit hiding under the bridge on the right side of the map is a great asset in any kind of adventure. The Taekwondo fighter's masterful punches and kicks allow it to easily destroy not only the cheaper units, but even advanced combatants like monks with ease. Not to mention, every fight it participates in is an absolute spectacle. It's like a Jester, except it don't need no blades, or to even dodge anything. While exploring the various hazards, you stumble upon a giant hole right in the middle of the map. If you go out the other side and take a look around, you will find a sword sticking out of the rocks. Upon inspecting the sword, you will find out it belonged to a warrior much greater than any you can have imagined. I mean literally greater. This guy is absolutely massive. Besides being capable of deflecting projectiles with his massive sword, the samurai giant can perform front flips that send shockwaves knocking everybody to the floor. Unlike his western cousins, this guy accepts no hugs from anyone, ever. He's too stoic, too focused, too determined. Our next target is probably the most well hidden out of all of the secret units. I mean, you literally can't see the item, even if you're looking right at it. What you need to do is approach the pagoda from the front and get as close as you can to the spot that you see on your screen right now. Stop moving as soon as you hear the familiar buzzing, and you should be good. Yeah, I think so. The legendary Lady Red Jade has a wide variety of attacks. Besides regular slashes with her Guandao, she can also create a small hurricane that will launch lesser enemies into the air. And this isn't even the most devastating attack of hers. Her kicks hurt even more than the Taekwondo fighter, if you can believe that. Her skills with the blade, her acrobatics, and her stylish outfit are truly unmatched. Lady Red Jade isn't the only surprise this magnificent pagoda holds. At the very top of it, you can find some seemingly stray shuriken lying around. These are no regular shuriken, however, as they belong to a true master of the art of throwing stuff around, the Sensei. Besides launching those stars at a much more rapid pace than a normal ninja, the Sensei can also launch an attack known as the Shuriken Tempest, which pretty much just does the same thing. It launches more shuriken, but it looks a lot fancier, so there's that. No amount of shields or deflector units can possibly stop this guy. And even the mighty Lady Red Jade, who costs the same amount of money, can hold a candle to him. Excuse me, what was that? Oh, you thought that was enough blades sticking out of things for today? Well, sorry, but we've got plenty more. For example, on this very map, if you go straight towards the edge and go down the cliff face, you will find a sakura tree with yet another sword lodged in it. This sword is very similar to the sword we found before, except a lot smaller, and for good reason. The Shogun is much more nimble than his giant counterpart, and has a great variety of attacks similar to Lady Red Jade. In addition to an epic anime leap and projectile deflection, he also has another attack known as the Hurricane Slash, which has clearly been taken straight out of an anime. The Shogun leaps away from the opponent, pauses for a moment, and then makes a lightning-quick dash towards them, causing them to freeze in horror as they realize their fate. After another moment passes, the wounds on the enemies are revealed as they collapse on the ground, having been sliced open when they barely noticed. This attack looks absolutely incredible and allows the Shogun to always deliver, as long as you have enough money to field him. Did you know that the greatest invention of the Renaissance era was rubber balloons? Well, the creators of tabs certainly think so. as the default archer isn't the only unit using this marvelous item. If you zoom out and look towards the skies on the Renaissance map, you will notice a figure floating in the distance. Upon closer inspection, you will see a fearless genius inventor ready to join your cause. The ballooner attacks by grabbing a nearby enemy, inflating his balloon, and taking to the air together in order to get a better look at the scenery. Unfortunately, the balloon is highly unstable and eventually pops, causing the two of them to fall back down. The ballooner, having been in this situation countless times, survives, while his opponent does not. You know, all this talk about secrets and hidden treasures get me all worked up for some real treasure hunting. And luckily, we've got just the map for that. The pirate map features some incredible scenery and props, but don't get too sidetracked, for we have got a job to do. In particular, on one of the small islands underneath the default camera position, you can see a table with some suspicious chemical compounds on it. In fact, it looks like one of them has been lit on fire and is about to explode. Get down! The bomb on a stick is a self-sacrifice unit who attempts to blow itself up along with some nearby enemies, with the value of destroyed enemies hopefully being much greater than the bomber's own cost. Unfortunately, it usually won't destroy all of the enemies, which means you have to pick the right allies to finish the job. The flintlock people are clearly the wrong allies. No pirate adventure is complete without underwater caves, and here we've got plenty of these as well. In particular, in the underwater segment of the left side of the map, there is a small cave with a bunch of clams in it. Look at these beautiful pearls they are holding, my lord. Wait, that's not a pearl, that's a wobbler head. How'd that get in there? Huh? The Clandestine Lethal Assault Mollusc Squad, or CLAMS for short, launches a barrage of highly mobile, highly aggressive clams that bite enemies' toes off, along with some other, more vulnerable parts, while the person who launched them stays behind and enjoys the show. Unfortunately, the clams also expire extremely quickly, and while the attack is on cooldown, the user will be highly vulnerable. So vulnerable, in fact, that it can't even punch to protect itself. What is a pirate ship without cannons? A civilian ship, that's what. But those cannons don't just grow on trees, you know. Instead, they lie around between some rocks, ready for a lucky adventurer to stumble upon them. In this particular instance, there is an extremely fancy cannon on the right side of the map, hidden behind the cliff. The bomb cannon enhances the destructive power of the normal cannon by firing explosive rounds. Be careful though, as if the projectile lands too close to the cannon, it will essentially self-destruct. By comparison, the regular cannon has about the same rate of fire, doesn't have nearly as much destructive power, but is also a lot safer to use. At least safer for its crew, I suppose. There's an old pirate saying, "The boldest captain gets the bestest loot of all!" And what captain could possibly be bolder than our next secret unit? In the secret cave behind the waterfall, you will find the remains of the most legendary and the most fearsome pirate of all. However, his remains isn't why we're here. All we need from him is his anchor, and using that, we can create perfect copies of him whenever we want. On the battlefield, Blackbeard is truly a force to be reckoned with. He can easily take 20 harpoons to the chest, all the while swinging his anchors like there is no tomorrow and devastating his foes with cannonball barrages from on high. Of course, he is better when supported with something else, but watching him work is always a treat, even when it's completely hopeless. And now we shall move from the saltiest map to the spookiest. I mean, it's literally called spooky, right? There are also plenty of mysteries on this one, if you dare disturb the spookiness. On the bottom left side of the map, you can see some strange chains moving as if on their own. Stare at them for too long, and you will reveal a true creature of nightmares. The Banshee possesses an ability called Ghost Hands, also known as telekinesis to normal people, where it can lift the enemies off the ground and crush them in midair. The Banshee Scream has a similar effect, except it lifts all of the enemies around the Banshee rather than being specifically targeted. Unfortunately, normal wobblers aren't turned into piles of bones when this ability is used on them, but otherwise it's just as deadly. Meanwhile, on the top left side of the map, you can find a graveyard. Yes, an actual graveyard on a Halloween-themed map. Who would have thought, right? One of the exhibits is a large skull that, upon closer inspection, reveals an even larger torso, arms, and legs. In comparison to other giants, the skeleton giant is a bit more bare bones, if you catch my drift. It doesn't have a stomp move or a massive shockwave punch move, but compensates by releasing bursts of fear in large areas of effect. This fear causes all enemies around the skeleton giant to run away from it. While an amazing ability on paper, in practice it can cause the skeleton giant itself to walk into environmental hazards as it chases down the fleeing enemies. And once it walks off the cliff, its usefulness becomes really hard to evaluate. You might even say you'll have a bone to pick with this guy after he's done. Moving on from spooky to spookier, the Spooky 2 map, also known as the Twisted Dynasty map, has its own secrets to share. For example, you can see this hat and broom floating above the far edge of the battlefield. This is the inevitable attendee of every single Halloween celebration, the Witch. The witch can float about the ground using its broom, summon copies of itself, and make mushrooms grow in its enemies' bodies. Thankfully, you don't need to burn the witch to counter it. Some good old-fashioned sword to the chest does the trick just fine. Interestingly though, the witch can easily destroy the slightly more expensive Banshee, with the latter being unable to even put a scratch on the former. The dark arts of the Tab's world are many. There seemingly is no end to their variety. In particular, look at this weird floating lantern on the right side of the map. What even is that thing? Who left it here? My guess is as good as yours. No wait, there is no reason to guess. We can see exactly who it is right here. The Necromancer's unique ability allows it to turn enemies into friends. If the enemies die while affected by those strange glowing skulls, they will be brought back as skeletons, wielding the same weapons they did in life. Except now they serve the whims of the Necromancer. In addition, those gravestones summoned from beneath the ground allow the evil sorcerer to keep its enemies at bay. Even more interestingly, the Necromancer's matchup with the witch is quite even. While the Necromancer itself is extremely fragile, as long as it can land a few good shots, it can transform the witch or its copies into skeletons, winning easily. However, the opposite seems just as likely to happen, making the average outcome a draw. Finally, we can leave the spooky places behind us. I was starting to get really creeped out. Whew. And now, it is time for something much brighter, but not more peaceful. Not in the slightest. It's about time we move to the dry prairies and lawless saloons of the Wild West. Our first yeehaw of the day is located in a stagecoach behind the buildings in front of us. This carriage once held a prisoner, but now only his shackles remain. Well, I reckon the prisoner is still here, as you can clearly see. The ball and chain unit works kinda similar to the stone thrower or stoner from the tribal faction. It throws a heavy rock at enemies, except it also gets launched together with a rock, allowing it to perform the attack over and over again with basically no cooldown. While the prospect of throwing yourself onto the enemy's blades might sound dubious to some people, the attack is heavy enough where it can provide some serious value. For example, a single ball and chain can easily destroy 3 hay balers, who when put together cost more. The next step of our plan involves robbing a bank. And yes, I'm serious. Down and to the right, from the default camera view, is a structure actually called a bank. And our job here is to bust in from behind and open the big vault inside. This can be easily done by placing a bunch of random units on both sides of the battlefield, initiating the fight, taking control of one of them, and then attacking the rear wall of the bank with anything you have. Even simple punches will do the trick. Once that's done, simply approach the vault, and the next secret unit will be revealed. The bank robbers are 2 perfectly fine folks who ain't looking for no trouble at all, or so I reckon. They can throw this vault full of real dollars, causing it to open up, and all of the money inside to burst out with a shockwave, killing anyone nearby, including one of the unfortunate fellows who was carrying it around before. These guys are pretty effective at what they do, with the only problem being that there are many other ways to do the same thing with a much lower risk of failure. The third and final location is behind the Guns and Tobacco store. Round here, you'll see a stairway with some barrels at the bottom. Look closely and you'll see a machine gun on wheels as well. Wow, that was really convenient, wasn't it? You don't see a giant machine gun on wheels behind every stairway, you know. The Gatling Gun's fire rate is fairly slow at first, but it picks up speed as it keeps firing, allowing it to eventually mow down massive hordes of enemies, as well as easily keep giant monstrosities at bay. See, this fella right here ain't even close to approaching us, partner. The fancy mustache of the operator is definitely a bonus if you ask me. And now, we shall do a lightning run of unlocking all units of the Legacy faction. These aren't quite secret units because they are their own faction and have their own campaign, but the unlocking process of both the units and the campaign remains pretty much the same. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1... Go! The banner bearer is unlocked by finding its banner among the red tents on the right side. To unlock the Poacher, stare at the memorial sign under the archer statue. The Blowdarter's Blowdart is in the unfinished grave next to the church entrance. The Pikeman's Pike is behind the church when looking from the default camera view. The Barrel Roller's barrel is among the blue tents on the left side. The Boxer's gloves are in a square of small trees next to the red tents. The Flag Bearer's flag is among the blue tents where you found the Barrel Roller's barrel. The Pharaoh is in a casket inside the church. Enter the roof through the hole in the middle. The Wizard's hut is on a tree stump next to a minecart on the road to the far left. The Chariot is on the edge of the red tent area. Thor's hammer is on the far right and the ruined bastion. You can't miss it, there's lightning bolts there and stuff. The tank is in a hole in the ground underneath a tree cluster on the far side of the church. The Super Boxer's gloves are glowing by a headstone to the right of the church. The Dark Peasant's evil hand is on a headstone behind the church. The Super Peasant's bracers are in the church bell, which for some reason is on the floor of the church bell tower. After unlocking all of these units, you will also unlock the campaign. If you're interested to see what exactly these units do, I've got 3 videos dedicated to demonstrating the Legacy units and campaign, so feel free to watch those after you're done with this video. I will, however, provide a small demonstration of what the tank can do, so you can appreciate it as much as everyone else does, because it's absolutely incredible. And now it is time for an epic drum roll, as we approach the final stages of this video, as well as the most recently released content. The secret door underneath the bridge on Medieval 1 that has been bugging players for years has finally opened. Inside we find a room full of statues, seemingly staring at the middle, where a heavenly light is pouring from the top. The light fills the diagram on the floor, with the landfall symbol on it, and through that, the greatest mystery is revealed. This is a portal to a world much like our own, except brighter, more beautiful, more heavenly, more righteous. This is a new map called Fantasy Good, where you can play one of the new campaigns, at first simply fighting against the good faction, then trying them out for yourself. However, this isn't the reason we are here today. We are here to find even more secrets. To the right side of the main platform is a small floating island with a window of stained glass on it. At the base of that window, we find a strange looking object that reveals the new, good-themed secret unit. In addition to launching simple projectiles, the Solar Architect has a unique ability to summon something resembling the sun right on top of its enemies, incinerating them alive. As this miniature sun disappears, it also produces an effect similar to the death of the Grim Reaper, where it sucks everybody in. This unit definitely needs an ally to act as a meat shield, because otherwise it dies extremely quickly once enemies get close. Not all of the mysteries should be discovered. Some of them are best laid to rest forever. But alas, humanity's curious nature gets the better of us once again, as we slowly but surely descend into madness. Underneath the land bridge on Spooky 1, you can find strange black tendrils emerging in a cave. As you follow them down the hole, you soon find yourself transported to yet another world, one you probably wish you'd never visit in your worst nightmares. This is the world of pure, unmasked, unmitigated evil. Yet even in this horrid, wretched place, there are secrets to uncover. If you follow the trail of menacing red particles coming from behind the statue in front of you, you'll find a weapon so forbidden, so malicious, so incredibly depraved, that even the vilest creatures in this world refuse to go anywhere near it. The Infernal Whip is a horrifying instrument of torture, capable of not only inflicting tremendous damage to the user's foes, but also attacking through walls and all other kinds of obstacles. It also seems to have infinite range, but that is only in effect when the player controls the unit. And with that, we have approached the end of our video. These are all of the secret units you can find by checking random objects scattered around the maps of Totally Accurate Battle Simulator. I hope you find this video useful and have lots and lots of fun with the new units at your disposal. Remember, if you enjoyed it, don't forget to press the like button and maybe even subscribe and write something in the comment section down below. Links to my Twitch stream, Instagram page, Discord server, and even Twitter will also be provided below, in both the description and the comment section. Accept my sincerest thanks for watching this video, and I hope to see you again soon. For now though, this is all I've got for today, so goodbye, and take care, everybody.